Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel where we make the Bible come alive. Today's story is called The Fiery Furnace. We're going to be looking at Daniel chapter 3 verses 1 to 30. So grab your Bibles and let's jump right in. So our story begins in the great city of Babylon, and it was during the time that the Israelites were exiled there under the rule of the mighty King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was an impressive ruler, really big on grand displays of power, and he wanted his people to acknowledge him as the supreme ruler of the universe. One day, he decided to build a huge golden statue, 90 feet tall, made of pure gold. And he placed this statue in the plain of Dura and had a huge ceremony dedicating it. Now, the next day, he sent out a royal proclamation throughout the whole empire, through all the provinces, through all the people under his rule. And he told them, "Listen up, everybody. Whenever you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery and symphony with all kinds of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden statue that I have set up. And whoever does not worship the statue, when they hear the music begin to play, will be cut up immediately in the fiery furnace." Wow. Serious consequences for disobeying the king's command. And so the entire empire bowed down and worshipped the golden image, except for some people from Judah. 3 young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who served the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, refused to bow. They chose not to obey the king's command. Now these 3 men worked in the royal court of King Nebuchadnezzar, which probably means they were very well educated in Babylonian culture and knew all about the significance of this golden statue. This wasn't just any statue. It represented the king's ultimate authority. It was the symbol of the Babylonian Empire. And for these 3 young men to refuse to bow before it was a direct challenge to the king's power. You know, I think it's important to recognize the courage it took for these men to stand up against the king. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar wasn't known for being kind or forgiving, especially when it came to disobeying his rules. But these 3 guys, they didn't care about their own safety. They were willing to put their lives on the line because they were standing up for what they believed in, because they knew that God was more powerful than any earthly king. Now, after the golden image had been around for a while and everybody had bowed down before it, some Babylonian officials noticed that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego hadn't bowed down. And so they went and told King Nebuchadnezzar, "Hey, king, you gotta come see this. There are some guys over here that aren't obeying your command. They're not bowing down to your golden statue." Nebuchadnezzar was furious when he heard this. He couldn't believe someone would be so disrespectful. And so he summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to his palace to confront them about their disobedience. You know, I can only imagine how nervous these 3 men must have been as they stood before the king knowing that their lives were in danger. I mean, Nebuchadnezzar was a tyrant, and he wasn't going to take kindly to them not obeying his command. But these 3 guys, they stood firm in their beliefs. They didn't back down. They didn't apologize. They didn't try to make excuses. They simply told the king that they could not obey his command because they were loyal to their God. Wow, these guys were seriously putting their faith in God. They knew that Nebuchadnezzar was a ruthless king, and he wasn't going to hesitate to punish them. But they still stood firm. So Nebuchadnezzar gave them one last chance to comply. He asked them, "Hey, if I let you go, will you promise to bow down before my golden statue?" But the 3 men responded by saying, "We do not need to tell you that we won't bow down. We know that our God is able to save us from the blazing furnace, and he will rescue us from your hands, O king. If he chooses not to do it, we will not worship your gods or bow down and serve the golden image that you have made." Wow, that is so bold. These guys were basically telling the king that if he throws them into the furnace, they will trust God to protect them. But if he doesn't, they will still not bow down to the golden statue. What an incredible display of faith. When Nebuchadnezzar heard this, he became even more enraged. He couldn't believe that these 3 men would defy him like this. And so he ordered his soldiers to heat up the furnace 7 times hotter than it was before. Now, this is important because it shows that the furnace was already hot, like it was used for burning things, and now he wanted it hotter. So when the furnace was roaring and blazing, the soldiers grabbed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and threw them into it. I can only imagine the heat and the flames engulfing these 3 men as they fell into the fiery furnace. You know, the temperature inside that furnace was so high that it actually killed the soldiers who were throwing the men in. But somehow, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were completely unharmed. The flames did not burn their flesh. The heat did not cause them any pain. And then something truly amazing happened. The 4 of them walked out of the furnace together. See, when the men were thrown into the furnace, there appeared a 4th figure with them. Some have interpreted this figure as being an angel, and others believe it may have been Jesus Christ himself. Either way, this heavenly being protected and guided the 3 men as they went into the furnace. As they stepped out of the flames, they were unharmed and unscathed, which shocked Nebuchadnezzar and everyone else who witnessed it. You know, it's amazing to think that these 3 men were willing to sacrifice their lives for their faith, and they didn't even die. That's a true testament to the power of God. When Nebuchadnezzar saw this, he was amazed. He couldn't believe his eyes. He thought that for sure the men would be burned up inside that furnace, but they were not. And what's even more amazing is that they didn't even smell like smoke. He was shocked beyond belief, and he called out to them, "Hey, you guys, why aren't you burned up? Why don't you smell like smoke?" And then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego responded by saying, "It is our God who sent his angel and saved us from your furnace, O king, because he saw that we did not bow down and worship the golden image that you had made." Wow, these guys were so faithful, so courageous. They didn't just stand up for themselves, but for everyone else in Babylon who was also being forced to worship the golden statue. Nebuchadnezzar realized that these 3 men had been protected by God, and he praised the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego for his power and glory. You know, this story is such a powerful reminder that no matter what we're going through in life, no matter how difficult the circumstances may seem, God is always with us. He is always ready to help us and deliver us from harm. These 3 men didn't have to die for their faith. They didn't have to suffer for it. But they were willing to do whatever it took to stay true to what they believed in. And in the end, God rewarded their faith and protected them. After this experience, Nebuchadnezzar decreed that anyone who tried to harm Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be punished. He also promoted them to positions of authority in Babylon so that they could continue to serve God and help others. What an incredible story of faith, courage, and divine protection. Well, that brings us to the end of today's Bible story. I hope you enjoyed hearing about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and their amazing adventure in the fiery furnace. If you like this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on future Bible adventures. Thank you for watching BibleLens.